I'm head of digital industries in the Nordics and the Baltics, that is 8 countries. What we typically do is, and our MindSphere platform here with the IoT is a good example, is that we make a dedicated team which is developing it, and afterwards then we are using our total sales organization globally to push it out to get the speed into it. But it's a dedicated team who do the innovation, and then afterwards we use the sales machine to get it out on the market. We have Grundfos over there. Grundfos know a lot about pumps and they know how to work with that. We have a platform you can use for IoT, MindSphere. And then we went to Danish Crown, which is a meat processing company, and then said to them, we can create additional value when Grundfos and Siemens are joining together with Danish Crown, because then we can get data out of the production, and these data can be used to actually run a better operation. So you can say that's a good example that you actually are 3 different companies joining together and then creating value. We use startup in different ways. Some of them you will see that they are, for example, a partner who is programming our PLCs, Simatic PLCs, or programming our MindSphere and actually making solutions to customers. But you could also see that we are using partners that we go in and invest in them. We have an organization called Next47, and the story behind that is that originally Siemens started 1847. And then we say, okay, we have a Next47, which actually is an organization which go out and say, okay, could be interesting for Siemens to invest here, actually, and of course it have to be a little bit close to our technology and this, so it somehow fits together. So both have a cooperation with them where they are going into to being a part of our ecosystem, perhaps programming some of our software, but also actually we have also the opportunity to go in to invest. As a big company as Siemens, you need to have a little bit like a mix that you also get input from outside, and then you have startups that think in a different way. Sometimes they are faster and doing things in a very clever way. And sometimes when you are an established company, you are thinking very much on the structures you already have and how you can utilize them. And then sometimes it's really good to get people who comes from outside to actually to joining this way. To have a partner where perhaps things is a little bit more established and organized, and then come in to be a part of that ecosystem. I think that will probably for many partners make sense. And then of course also, if you as a startup shall do everything by yourself, it's also not a good way. You must team up with some partners, and then you make what exactly you are good at. Siemens is a purpose-driven company, meaning that we want to have a positive impact on society. We call it business to society. There I must say that if you are in a company only have the goal that you want to earn as much money as possible, is that really sustainable? Can you get good people working for a company like that? Can you do a difference in the world? We know that energy consumptions will go up 40% until 2030. The population is growing quite heavily. 2 billion people will be added in a relatively few years. The need for food, the need for water will go up. Can we find solutions on these areas together with other companies? Then we can participate in creating a better world. And if we do that, then of course you can also be a strong company. So it's not that you're only doing it to be a good company, but you have both to do both. What we look into is this world that we can see they will use more energy. And then we say, okay, there's 2 ways you can solve that, if we at the same time have to have it in a sustainable way. One is to make green energy, where we don't make pollution with CO2, and the other thing is called energy savings. You probably have to do both. because remembering that the energy consumption probably will rise with 40% to 2030. So that's an example where we can help. We also know that a lot of people will move into the cities, so we need to build smart cities where people can have good lives. So, and to talk about food, can we also help to make factories? Now I was mentioning Danish Crown. Can we help to make the food industry more efficient and working better? Then we can also help solve these problems. So we've been looking into say, okay, this is what will happen. How can we help on it? And then we are really happy for these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, because our strategy was business to society. We want to help, and then say, okay, now we actually know what it is, because we say, okay, that is our framework for how business, how companies can have a positive impact in societies. That is the 17 SDG goals.